I want to take a question from the audience now. Warren Kindler wrote this, and I'm going to start with you, Governor Johnson. Does the U.S. need to defend our allies with ground troops deployed throughout the world, given the advancement in ultra-high-tech warfare? And I'm going to specifically ask about putting troops in nations, especially those rich Western European countries, that probably can afford to defend themselves. Should we keep our troops there?
I'm promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. That is going to contain a 43% reduction in military spending. The operative question is can we provide a strong national defense for this country and still cut military spending by 43%? My answer is yes. The operative word being defense, as opposed to offense, as opposed to nation building. I'm not doing this in a vacuum. So I, about a month ago, had a conference call with 5 individuals that do this for a living. And how do we cut the military by 43%? Well, we got into it. Instead of 2,300 nuclear warheads, 500 will probably do. I've lived my entire life believing we don't need to blow up the planet 9 times, and maybe 5 will suffice. That it is a reduction in for those that are in uniform, and it's a reduction of the civilian staff that supports those in uniform. It's a reduction in our military presence throughout the world. I will tell you that I was opposed to Iraq from the very start. I did not see a military threat from Iraq. I thought we had the military surveillance capability to see Iraq roll out any weapons of mass destruction if that was going to happen, and that we could have gone in and dealt with that. I thought if we went into Iraq, we'd find ourselves in a civil war to which there would be no end. Afghanistan, I thought initially was totally warranted. But after being in Afghanistan for 6 months, we had wiped out Al-Qaeda. We're building roads, schools, bridges, highways, and hospitals in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places in the world, and we have those same needs here in this country. To me, that's crazy. Libya. I was opposed to our involvement in Libya and issued a paper on that immediately. Where in the Constitution does it say that because we don't like a foreign leader, we should go in and topple that foreign leader? It does not exist. Military spending. Do we need 100,000 troops on the ground in Germany? I don't know of anybody that believes that. Won't 43,000 do? Or excuse me, wouldn't 62? 57 do? We're actually really good at simple math. But wouldn't 57,000 troops do it? I have a hard time understanding why we have any troops at all. So when it comes to the military, one of the key elements in the military is, I'm opposed to foreign aid. I think the fact that we borrow 43 cents out of every dollar and we literally give it away to foreign countries, I think that's crazy. But I think in the context of providing a worldwide, a strong defense against terrorism in the world today, that military alliances are really key. So other countries need to take up the burden that they have not had to take up to this point. All these vaunted infrastructure projects in Europe, like transportation programs in Europe, universal health care, you know what? We've subsidized those programs because we've picked up the defense tab in Europe. They've got to pick up that tab. So do other countries. I think we need to understand that of the dollar that's being spent worldwide on military spending, we're spending 52 cents of that dollar, and we're 5% of the world's population. Putting into perspective China and the amount of money they spend, they're spending 9 cents out of that dollar. So is China really a threat, and is China loaning us money so that we can bomb them? I don't think so. And actually, on the back of a napkin, I've computed that the interest that we're paying to China every year for the amount of money they've loan us basically pays for their military, if that isn't outrageous. So we can cut military spending by 43%, and we can provide a strong national defense for this country.
Governor Roemer, what do you think about that? When downsizing the military, we've got troops in Japan, troops in Germany. These are pretty rich countries. They could probably take care of that, right?
I'm cautious. Military comes first with me. America's not worth much if it's not free. That it's an obligation constitutionally written and practiced since the first day of our republic. I do agree with Gary that there is much waste. There's much duplication. For example, there are 1,165 military bases overseas. I think we can reduce that number and the troops thereon. But I think we must defend our country. I think we can scrub the budget, make saving, but I would reinvest it in the military. I don't think we can ever be too far ahead in a dangerous world. And what bothers me are other things, not just the waste, fraud, and abuse that occurs in military contracts, although that is scary enough. What bothers me is that 36% of our military equipment is made in a foreign country and has to be shipped here. I can remember at a time, and maybe I'm showing my age, I'm 68, I can remember a time when New Hampshire made stuff. I remember when Made in America was a proud symbol. I remember a time when our presidents would stand up to the kind of subterfuge and illegal trade that the Chinese are practicing. Now, I've been to China many times, gang. I'm not talking about theory. I've been in the back door of the factories, and I never went on a government flight or a government check. I paid my own way. My bank and I represent American customers who do business there or try. And I'll tell you, Paul, you cannot have fair trade with China. It is unfair. I had a small company in Louisiana build fire engines. They had a special narrow width. They ran their ladders up high, 70, 80, 100 feet. They were perfect for Chinese cities. We flew to Chengdu, China. You've never heard of Chengdu. It's 8 million people. It's the home of the panda bear, okay? It's the home of the bamboo forest. We went to Chengdu. It took us 8 years to move the first fire engine from Louisiana to Chengdu. 8 years of government, communist, one-party, dictatorship, interference. And yet, when you mention unfair trade in our capital, paid off by GE and all the other big corporations who like unfair trade, you know, they fire American workers, they go to China and build a plant, and you know what they do with their products? They sell them back in America. And there's no tariff, there's no duty, there's no tax. Hell, it's the way they make more money. Do you know that the corporations in America, the last 18 months, made more money in any 18-month period in the history of our country? And I call their hand on it. I think unfair trade needs to stop. Now, what does that have to do with the military? It has to do with products from Japan, who has a protectionist economy, Taiwan, who has a protectionist economy, China, who has a protectionist economy, Germany, who has a protectionist economy, and all of our politicians are so proud about being free traders. Well, I got news for you, Granite Party. I got news for you, Patriots. There is no free trade. We are the sucker of the world. I wish there were free trade. I wish there were. And I'm not going to cut trade off, but I'll make you one promise, Gary, not 4. One promise. We will stop the unfair trade from China.
All right. Governor Johnson, please, because this is something China, and then this came up in one of the debates the other night, China is a major threat to the United States, or is it?
Well, I think the biggest threat to the United States is the fact that we're bankrupt. That's the biggest threat to the United States. So balancing the budget remedies that, in my opinion. I'm the free trade guy. I really am. I think there's a magic to free markets. I think the criticism of free markets always ends up to be actually the opposite of free markets. It ends up being consequences of government policy as opposed to free markets. I think free markets work magnificently if allowed to work. So when it comes to China, if China wants to subsidize the goods and services that they're sending the United States, that's to their ultimate detriment. And we should take advantage of that and buy as much of it as we want, because I think we all benefit from the lower cost of goods and services. And that will correct itself. Believe me, that will correct itself.
How long will that take, Gary? How long will that take to correct itself?
Well, right now in China is arguably the biggest financial bubble that's ever been created in mankind. And that is their commercial real estate. And that is going to bust. And I'm just gonna offer a prediction here. And that is that if you go back and look at the threat that Japan was posing to us in the 70s and 80s, that seems to have passed. I think the Chinese threat, as we perceive it, is also going to pass, because I don't see a state-run economy working. It's not going to work, and we're going to see that come to pass. The fact that they are keeping their currency artificially low is ultimately a detriment to themselves, and they're going to pay for that in the future. This real estate bubble that is going to burst, at some point, it will. It can't sustain itself. And then the fact that they do subsidize goods and services, that I would argue in a free market system, the way to correct that is buy as much of it as you possibly can, because those are goods and services that benefit us. It's less time that we have to spend earning money to be able to buy those goods and services.
Well, maybe I'm not a good theoretical economist, but I disagree with everything you just said. I don't think America can sit and wait for the tides of time to correct the problem. I talk to young women and men on college campuses, Gary, that will have no job offers when they graduate this year. I talk to working people across America who have had their jobs stolen. Now, America must compete, and it's not going to always work our way. And you talk about we survived the Japanese, but we lost our camera business, we lost our home electronic business, we lost our optical business, we lost our automobile business. I guess there were no effects from that. And the Chinese and the Japanese, rather, competed unfairly. They were not free traders. In theory, Gary, in theory, I have a degree in economics, undergraduate, master's degree in banking. In theory, water will seek its proper level. But the problem is 10 and 15 and 20 years of abuse scars a generation. We have a generation of Americans, about 25% of American population, who don't have a decent job. They're either unemployed or they're underemployed or they quit looking for work. Now, we're not going to solve it all by making China on a level playing field. But we might create $5 or $6 million. We might have a president who actually wears clothes made in America. We might actually have as our goal as a society to compete better and to compete well. But I don't think in this small globe, Gary, we can wait for time to heal the wounds. I think we need to take action, and I would start with China.
GrokTV.